Well, it's crazy. Like, I don't understand like how people write articles without having 100 tabs open. Because I think it's like, you have like a 20 tab minimum that you have to have open all at one time, right?
Yes. And I'm so ADD too. So I've got like my legal pad, like probably 2 or 3 legal pads, like all spread out around me because one's for this, one's for this. It's like a coping mech for ADHD.
Yep.
I just have to have everything right here. And it works pretty well. But if somebody were to get on my computer and actually look at it, yeah.
It's insane. And like, people don't get it. I'm like, I don't know how you guys don't do this. Like, it is what it is though. I'm sitting here with probably, let's see, close to, I'm up to like 30 or 40 right now currently. I should have probably restarted my computer to so I didn't
kill some lag.
Yeah, no kidding. But I'm excited. This week 2 is going to be nuts. Did you see the over-unders for week 2?
I haven't looked at that yet, no. But
there's like
I've looked at a couple, but
there's like 6 games. There's like 6 games that are scheduled to be over 50 points.
That's just like nuts.
It might be 7. I know there's 4. All 4 p.m. games are scheduled to be over 50 points. Then there's the one on Sunday night, I think. And then there's one during the 1 o'clock game to be over.
That is so crazy.
Yeah, it is. It's going to be nuts.
Well, it'll be great for Red Zone having all the late games being scheduled to be over. Like Scott Hansen won't get a break, it'll just go back and forth.
No, that makes plenty of sense. And I'm jealous for him. So let's go ahead. You ready to kick this show off?
Yeah, let's go.
All right, let's get this show moving. Where are we?
This is Fantasy Intervention. Now here to intervene with your fantasy life, Chase Vernon.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome on into another episode of Fantasy Intervention. We are here. We are here for your waiver wire needs. And yes, it's not just me. I am joined with my special guest, Britt Flinn over there. On Twitter, you guys can find her at Britt_Flinn. Once again, that's at Britt_Flinn. How you doing tonight, Britt? What you got going on?
I'm so good. How's it going with you?
Going pretty well. Obviously, we just got done talking about how we're excited for week 2, the over-under. So I've been writing articles. Dude, everything has just been falling on my plate, but I'm excited. I love doing it. Like, that's what I'm here for. So this DFS piece that I'm writing for Player Profiler this week, I mean, with the over-unders, like, I don't know where I can stop writing. It's just been just nonstop all day, hammering out stats, facts, everything from this past week. It's been fun. But you're writing one too, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm doing a weekly DFS value article. I'm not the greatest at DFS, but I do love a good value. So I'm like, ooh, they're cheap. They're cheap. They're cheap. They should go off. Like, it's kind of fun.
Yeah, no,
just in like my thrift store nature, I guess.
I love, the values, of course, that you can find. Like, we're sitting there looking at values this past week, and I mean, Jalen Reagor was fire. There's values everywhere. Elijah Moore obviously went off, but I'm sure that there's going to be some gems. You guys need to go check it out over there on Twitter with all of her articles and pieces. She has some value pieces coming up that I am very, very excited to check out. But we've got a show to get to. Before we do, I do want to bring up real quick to go check out Thrive Fantasy, thrivefantasy.com. If you guys go check out Thrive Fantasy, they actually have prop bets that are happening. Like Alvin Kamara was one of the ones from this past week that I was telling everybody to smash the over on. And if you go on Thrive Fantasy, right, and you go play these prop bets, super fun game. You guys make a deposit. Whatever you deposit, up to $100, they'll actually match it if you use promo code Marcus. So go check it out, thrivefantasy.com. Use promo code Marcus because everybody in fantasy football discussion knows that we love to beat up on Marcus. So go check that out, thrivefantasy.com. Now, we got a couple questions coming in the chat already. Fantasy football discussion, you guys keep us busy. Keep these questions going. Mike, I see you in the chat, by the way, and I actually almost played your video instead of doing the Thrive promo post, like the read itself. I almost played your video instead, and I feel like I should have done it, and now I'm mad that I didn't because you're in here right now. But back to Ayuk real quick. Obviously, Deebo Samuel smashed faces this past week. George Kittle did pretty well himself. This is something as to where a lot of us were saying fade Brandon Ayuk because not only does he deal with injuries himself, but it could end up being a reduction in volume. Now, Brandon Ayuk goes out there, obviously didn't even have a day. So are you somebody that's looking at Brandon Ayuk as somebody that you want to, play moving forward or keep on your roster? Or what are you doing with Brandon Ayuk?
See, I'm kind of the same mindset. I think that Ayuk only saw the opportunity that he did last season because of the injuries to Deebo Samuel and to Kittle and, just the mess that was San Francisco last season. And I honestly don't think I have him in a single fantasy lineup or a single roster. And, it wasn't necessarily intentional, but I'm not upset that I don't have him because I just don't think that he's going to deliver value at what his ADP was and all the hype around him was this season.
Yeah, I mean, Ayuk was tough. Like with how high he was going that high because guess what? They didn't have anybody last year to play to the Pro 2. But with that being said, don't dump Ayuk. Please don't dump Ayuk because we don't know what's going to happen with the 49ers. We never do when it comes to their injuries. I mean,
and Deebo's always hurt. Deebo's always hurt. So he's going to have opportunity at some point. It's just not somebody I would start on a week to week,
And obviously you probably drafted Ayuk, in the top half of the draft. So yeah, you're not going to dump him right off the bat because of one, subpar performance. However, when it comes to just rolling him out in your lineups, be very cautious if Deebo and or George Kittle are healthy moving forward. Now, we do have a few of these people in the chat that want to know about some of these other players, and we're going to get to them throughout the show. We have Tim Patrick queued up. We have KJ Hamler queued up. We have Elijah Mitchell. But I will answer some questions that we don't have as we go. Just if you don't have a question answered, just know that we actually will have them covered in the chat. We're not just going to skip over your questions in here. So let's start it out with your biggest surprise from week one, where you thought that something you didn't expect to happen that actually happened.
Well, I don't know if you've read any of the articles, but I did have Jameis Winston as a DFS value week one, just because his salary was at $5,500. But I did not think he was going to go off for 5 touchdowns. Like, what happened with that game? Aaron Rodgers just pooped the bed. Like, it was insane. I loved it, but I did not expect it.
Yeah, no, and for Jameis Winston to throw those 5 touchdowns, he only had what, like
143 or something like that, like something crazy. But yeah.
It's funny because in our Weenus division, I actually was sitting there talking about it, how this charity league that we play in, and Jameis Winston somehow in this charity league, because you get all sorts of crazy points, threw for 5 touchdowns and still was the lowest scoring quarterback on the week. So yeah, that was definitely interesting. Jameis Winston with his LASIK surgery up against the Packers, who are actually pretty good up against the pass, at least over the past few years they have been with Jair Alexander. But Marquez Callaway didn't do too hot in this matchup. Is this something as to where you think they were trying to control the ball more often so they didn't take downfield shots to Marquez Callaway? Where do you think this, this actually leads Marquez Callaway in the future?
I'm still in on Callaway. I think, I don't know. I thought he could do better than what he did, but I don't think he's completely washed at this point. Like Michael Thomas, in addition to the ankle surgery and all the injury issues and the drama going on in New Orleans, he got put on the COVID list today. there's an outbreak among like the offensive line coaches in New Orleans, like there's going to be opportunity for Callaway. I'm not ready to just throw him out in the wash yet.
Well, let's go ahead and jump into the show because we got waiver wires to talk about. And the first one up is Jameis Winston. He's rostered in 30% of the leagues, right? So obviously he was the best quarterback on the field, outplaying Rodgers, like we talked about. Only 14 attempts. It was 35.7% of his passes went for touchdowns. Jameis Winston, like you said, Marquez Callaway should see opportunities. Is Jameis Winston going to play like this every week, or is this going to be the same boom or bust Jameis Winston that we've seen over the past, 4 or 5 years now?
I don't know if he'll throw 5 touchdowns every single week, but, that's kind of a high bar. But I think he's doing really well with Sean Payton. And I think Sean Payton has developed him, and he's, had a year as a backup to work the playbook, to learn the system. And he's also matured as a person and a player. So I also don't think Payton's going to let him just sling, downfield. He's got Kamara, he's got Tony Jones. Like there's a much more balanced offensive attack in New Orleans than there was in Tampa when Jameis was there. So he has that kind of option to read the defenses and check out, of a pass play or scramble if he wants to do that or whatever. And so I think he's going to do really well this season. I'm kind of sad that I didn't get him in several leagues.
So this is my take on it. If you're in a single quarterback league, I'm actually leaving him on the waivers. I'm not going to stream him. I'm going to leave him on the waivers. His upcoming schedule is extremely tough. He's got Carolina, who's my sleeper defense of the year. They played pretty well this past week. We have New England, who we all know is good up against the quarterback. We have the Giants, who their secondary is majorly improved. Didn't look like it as much this past weekend, but yeah, it's a little improved, I'll say. Then they have Washington, and then they have a bye. After that, they got Seattle, such a good matchup, and then they have Tampa Bay after that. But for me, Jameis Winston, I'm going to let him sit on the waivers. I'm going to let him marinate. I'm not going to go and spend a bunch of FAAB on him. I'm going to see if he makes it past the waiver wire, so that way we can actually try and grab him and not have to spend those FAAB bucks. That's where I stand with Jameis Winston. Are you going to go out there and grab him if you're streaming tight ends in a single quarterback league?
I think you almost have to. I'm a very big believer in kind of grabbing waivers, even as a defensive mechanism against like other players in your league. And I would kick myself if he just goes off and I let somebody else grab him. I think at this point, benches are deep enough. You have enough like unproven players on your bench that you can deal with having him sit on your bench for 2 weeks to see what he'll do.
Well, would you rather have him or Taylor Heinicke? Because that's number 2 on the list for a lot of people's waiver wire targets. Are you making a play for Heinicke with that rushing upside, with that play up against Tampa Bay in the playoffs?
I'm in a 2 quarterback league, super flex kind of thing like that. Yes, just because there's so few options out there at this point. But in a 1 quarterback league, like I'm just going to let him chill.
So
I can't.
Yeah, I'm going to let him lie in single quarterback leagues. But in 2 quarterback leagues, like you talked about, I believe have like 15% of my FAAB budget on him, especially if you got, the short end of the stick with Ryan Fitzpatrick. A lot of people ended up trying to draft Fitzpatrick later on in their drafts, going with just 2 quarterbacks and, playing that upside. Fitzpatrick, man, he's not going to make it. He's not going to make it behind this makeshift offensive line. I know he's done it for many, many years, but you can't be, what is he, 39 now, I believe, 40 years old and getting hit constantly. And man, Charles Leno just opened up that door and let the defensive end in. That was bad.
And I was so excited for McLaurin having Fitzpatrick. I was thinking like vintage a la Fitzmagic, Deshaun Jackson days. And then week 1 just comes to crush your hopes.
No, absolutely. And it happens every single year. What was it? Big Ben and I think Drew Brees last year, week 1. But now we have Jared Goff is another guy where, it's floating around. And I really wanted to trash Jared Goff and say, what are you doing picking up Jared Goff? But the way they operated this system, it's reminiscent of the New Orleans Saints, of course, and getting the ball in your playmakers' hands. And it looked like they had 2 Alvin Kamaras and Jamal Williams and DeAndre Swift, not just 1. But he threw for 338 yards, 3 touchdowns. Hawkinson was a major player in this offense. And this division, doesn't have the best defenses up against pass catching running backs. If you guys go back and revisit Joe's score, is Jared Goff somebody that you could actually see yourself picking up off waivers?
I hate it because the 49ers defense was supposed to be good, right? Like everyone was like, fade Swift, fade like Williams, Jared Goff sucks, blah, 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 blah. And then he came out and did this. And it was like, what happened? Their offensive line is really, really, really good. Shout out Frank Ragnow, Arkansas boy, highest paid center in the league. Protect your boy, Ragnow. But yeah, I think maybe behind that line that Goff could be good. And again, like I'm not rushing to dump anyone, but if you have somebody who, was just a late round flyer that you don't really need, you have depth at in some position, like pick him up, see if he continues this performance. Everyone thought Detroit was going to be really bad, and they almost shamed the 49ers.
They almost made it. They almost got there. They didn't quite get it, but you started to see like the momentum pick up for this team, which is something that I think could actually take over. And I wrote how when Jared Goff actually targets tight end last season, I got to find it. It's somewhere on Twitter. But when Jared Goff targets the tight end, he's actually overly efficient, and he did it with guys like Tyler Higbee, with guys like Gerald Everett. I think Johnny Mont was the other one. And it's like, dude, now that he has Hawkinson, like we could be talking some big time moves. And Jared Goff's upcoming schedule is not that bad. I mean, he's got Baltimore, who's tough. But we just saw what Derek Carr did up against him, although it was, a lot of it coming in overtime and in the fourth. But following that, we have, where are we? We've got Baltimore, who we just talked about, Green Bay, who just got torched by Jameis Winston for 5 touchdowns, Chicago, Minnesota, Cincinnati. Sure, they have the Rams, but then they have Philly after that. I mean, we're talking about some pretty good matchups for Goff, and I would not mind somebody sitting there spending 5-10% of their FAAB and throw them on the back of the roster, even in 2 quarterback leagues. Now, the over-under, I believe, or the favor actually this upcoming week is a little bit shocking. Green Bay is favored. It's in Green Bay, by the way. They're favored to beat the Lions by 11 points. I don't know that's the case. Green Bay has trouble stopping pass-catching running backs and running backs as a whole. Meanwhile, if Jared Goff can get that protection, like I'm thinking that Jared Goff could still throw for 3 touchdowns and keep his team in the game.
No, somebody was talking about Green Bay being the number 1 streaming defense option. And I was just like, what? Why? No, I had that same thought. I was like, I'm not touching that right now. Did you see what just happened? Like against the Saints, like you guys got torched. And, it's still up in the air. Nobody knows if Jared Goff is Jameis Winston or if Jameis Winston is for real or whatever, but it's not somebody who I want to take a chance on streaming. Like, no way. That 11, like, no way.
Yeah, so Jared Goff for me, is a pickup. Let's go ahead and move on to running backs, because we definitely have some running back stuff going on in the chat, some activity. Most of it's with the wide receiver. So I'm going to wait to pull up those wide receiver questions in the chat. However, if you want to know about some running backs, we do have Elijah Mitchell, Jermichael Hasty, Trey Sermon, Mark Ingram, and Tony Jones, along with my baby boy, who we'll bring up here in a second, who, oh my God, is he a waiver wire pickup or what? He's fire. But yeah, if you guys have anybody else that you want to know about in the chat, please go ahead and put it in there. But let's start it out with the 49ers team, who Mostert's hurt, right? After Jeff Wilson got hurt earlier in the offseason. This team just continues to fall apart. But guess what? It's the wide zone run scheme, who literally, they asked the running backs to sprint as fast as they can to a corner, find a crease, and get upfield. If there's no crease, then you just hit the defenders. You hit these defensive linemen and these linebackers as hard as you can to fall forward and get, a few yards. And it's completely reckless, but it does work for fantasy. However, it just doesn't work for long. And we saw it with Iggy Woods, right? We saw it with Terrell Davis. We saw it with, Steven Jackson. It's just multiple running back after running back after running back that had a few fantasy seasons of gold in these systems, but eventually they start to fall apart. Maybe Derrick Henry is going to be the only one that's going to actually fit in this system that doesn't fall apart, but we'll see what happens. But going to it, we have Mitchell, who's rostered in 3.8% of leagues. We have Hasty in 0.5, and then Sermon, who's 77.5. So that's going to be a little bit tougher to get. But Britt, where are you sitting with these 3? Which one do you want to actually have rostered? Are you running to the waiver wires and throwing all your money on it? Say, take my money. I need this player.
I'm a victim of Sermon, so I can't. This whole segment hurts me, especially after him being inactive last week. It was just like, what happened? But Shanahanigans. It's a word for a reason. Like, I think, and even if you look on Twitter, people are like, go pick up Mitchell, go pick up Hasty. No, I'm putting it all in on Sermon. Like, no one knows. So, like, yeah, sure. If you're hurting at running back, go grab him, blow your FAAB, whatever. But do we really know? Like, is that going to be worth it? And what if it doesn't work out? Like, what if Elijah Mitchell gets supplanted by Trey Sermon here in a couple weeks, and then you just blew your FAAB for the whole season on that? Like, I mean, I don't know if it's going to happen. I don't think that it'll happen. It seems like Shanahan really does like Mitchell, but I think that there's too much draft capital in Sermon to just, kick him to the curb. And it's just too messy for me. I'm honestly, like, I'm personally avoiding it, but I know a lot of people who are jumping all in on Mitchell.
So I really like Mitchell with this one. I mean, his speed is insane. He ran a 4.35 at his pro day in the 40. And that's kind of what you need, but you also need a little bit of size to work in this offense. And when Mitchell came in, I really liked this landing spot with the 49ers because I'm like, he can be that third down back that Shanahan has been looking for, I should say, since like Evan Royster, right? When he was coaching with Washington. Like, he is looking for this guy to be a guy who can, make defenders miss, who can be the third down back and be the go-to guy when needed. But I don't see him seizing the lead back role and carrying the ball 25, 30 times a game, essentially. I think that he's going to be a back that still sees anywhere from 10 to 15 touches, maxing out at 20. But it is going to be a full committee approach, which is why I say, pump the brakes on throwing your FAAB at any one of these guys, like, in order to amount. I like Elijah Mitchell the most. I think that he has the most upside. I think that he has the biggest or the most big play ability, right? Has the biggest chance to break a runaway and score a 40-yard touchdown. But I still think that Hasty's going to be involved. I still think that Sermon's going to be involved. And
don't forget about Juszczyk. He still uses Juszczyk.
He does.
It's like the only offense that a fullback has a relevant role is in San Francisco. Like, it's crazy.
It is. But yeah, I like Elijah Mitchell the most out of this group. I might throw probably 20% at Elijah Mitchell if I need a running back. If I don't need a running back and I'm just trying to get some depth onto my roster, I'm probably going to pull that back. I'm probably going to go close to 15%. But if I need a running back and I need a guy that's going to start in some of my clutch spots or some of my bye weeks, or even if you have to have him start right now, I think Elijah Mitchell is that guy, and you need to go get him. Whether that takes 20% of your FAAB or 30% of your FAAB, it's up to you with how fragile your team is. But Elijah Mitchell, I think, is the go-to guy. Meanwhile, Jermichael Hasty, if he's out there, 10% of your FAAB should suffice. If somebody doesn't get him, then they're going to be overpaying for that player. And injuries are plenty this year. So we're going to see multiple different opportunities to grab different running backs, including some of these other guys that we actually have lined up for you. Do you have anything else to add onto Elijah Mitchell, Jermichael Hasty, or Trey Sermon?
Just stop the shenanigans. I need Sermon to pan out for me, but that's about it.
All right, so let's go ahead. Let's go ahead and answer this question real quick before we hop on to the next one. If Tyson Williams is out there or Latavius Murray, which one are you going to go with? Because the run blocking was terrible for Tyson Williams last night. It was awful. It was awful. Yeah, I think he in that so third quarter or whenever he didn't even get a chip block. Like, he basically just whiffed on the whole block, and then it caused the fumble. It was so bad. It was so bad. And I mean, he's a great running back, but you've got to be able to block too, especially in that run first offense where Lamar carries so much stuff. It's just it's so messy. All of it's so messy. Well, and then we saw Latavius Murray come in, who actually knows how to play football, who's been playing football, and who's a good running back and still averaged a ton of yards last year. And although he didn't have a great game, he just joined the team. And I thought that Latavius Murray was going to be the first running back they went after prior to Gus Edwards getting hurt. And then after Gus Edwards got hurt, I was like, oh, that's a lot.
Shocked.
And then they went after Le'Veon Bell.
Shocked. I'm like, how do these guys not get signed to a single team this offseason? And then these are the first guys that you go after. Just shocked. Yeah. I like Murray. I really do. He's had good seasons. Even being a backup, He's a solid run blocker. He's a solid runner. He knows the playbooks. I mean, I really like him, and I think probably midway, if not a little bit before the season, he'll take over as like a 60-40 split. I mean, it's still going to be a split system, but I think at the end of the year, he'll have the majority of the carries.
I like that. And I think Murray is the back to own in this offense. We saw who they trust. We saw who they like. Meanwhile, I didn't give the shout out to Dave, of course. He wanted to give you a shout out. What a name for Shanahan. I absolutely love it as well. And then he comes in to add that he thinks that Mitchell is better than Hasty. Even 1B is valuable. I like Mitchell as well. Obviously, we covered that one. So we have in the chat as well, Pat wanted to add in that Tyson has much better upside, especially with catching in PPR. I do agree with that to an extent, but how often are they going to be passing the ball to the running backs over there for Baltimore? It's not going to happen often. So, yeah, if he gets 2 targets a game, like, great. I'm off on that. I'd rather have the guy who I know that they trust, who is going to be an integral part of this offense, who it has been a relevant running back in the NFL for the past 5 or 6 years and has seen limited usage. So he doesn't have a ton of wear and tear. Somebody that could actually explode going forward. I'm going Murray myself. So let's go to our next guy. We have Mark Ingram, rostered in 13.3% of the ESPN leagues. Dude, he was flexing, getting 26 carries. That was pretty intense.
How? Like, that backfield was so messy, and then he just came out and like killed.
But it was funny because everybody's shouting for Phillip Lindsay, right? Like, that was my favorite thing that happened. I was like, how pissed off are Phillip Lindsay people right now who are fighting for Phillip Lindsay? But I mean, Rex Burkhead got a little bit of usage, not a lot. I mean, the only one that was out there constantly was Mark Ingram. And I actually like the way that they used David Johnson. Even though they were winning, he still got work in the passing game. And I think that David Johnson can be somebody that's efficient moving forward if he doesn't have to run his head into a wall 100 times. So this is a situation with Mark Ingram where I'm not going to likely go spend a ton of FAAB on him. If he's out there, sure, I'll throw out a 5% bid. But I'm afraid that they're just going to run these guys so often and so hard into the back of their offensive line, into the defenders, that we might see Phillip Lindsay starting by week 3 or 4. We might see Rex Burkhead starting by week, 8, 9, 10. Like, we might even see David Johnson starting at the end of the year again and reclaiming his role to dominate teams and crush everybody's fantasy hopes in weeks 15 through 17 like he did last year. So David Johnson is somebody that I'm probably actually going to target because I think he's going to see a little bit of work usage. And I saw what I needed to see by his work on third downs and by work in the passing game and work in the red zone as well. Not going to do a ton of it. But like I said, if I see Mark Ingram out there, 5% FAAB, if that. If I see David Johnson out there, a couple bucks, I'll just throw a couple bucks at it and just see what happens. Like, but I want guys in this offense in the running game because they obviously want to run. And the Texans aren't going to be good this entire year, but at least they're going to run their guys out a whole bunch of times. And they also have advantageous matchups throughout the season. How are you feeling?
Yeah, I agree with everything that you said right there. Mark Ingram's, regarding the injury history, or not injury history, but injury risk, I guess, Mark Ingram is no spring chicken. Like, dude is fairly ancient when it comes to running backs. Like, he's got a very, very good chance of getting hurt, especially if he does get ran in the ground like they're doing. I think Houston's probably still trying to figure out their offense. I don't know, the whole Deshaun Johnson situation, but how many reps did Tyrod Taylor get in camp with first teams? Like, I don't really know how much of that the coaches are still trying to figure out. So I do think Lindsay could still be, a pass catching back when it comes down to it. But yeah, I'm with you. If Ingram's out there, like, yeah, a couple bucks here and there, but it's not anybody I'm clamoring over.
No, you don't need to. You really don't need to. I saw a post earlier today because we pulled these off, by the way, everybody. We pulled these off of a bunch of other big time sites for people that are telling you to go, spend your FAAB on this, spend your FAAB at that. And then we just tell you, hey, you shouldn't go blow that much on there because you're just wasting your money. So when I saw that somebody was saying 25% of their FAAB for Mark Ingram, I'm like, I don't care if he's getting that workload. Like, you do not need to blow that FAAB. Guess what? They just played Jacksonville, right? Jacksonville's, front seven is completely depleted. Don't go waste your money. Throw a couple bucks at it. You're probably going to get outbid, but don't worry about it. You'll get somebody else next week. And
then you'll be happy that you saved your money.
Yeah, and then you'll be happy. Wait till a big one comes up that you actually know is gonna go off. Let's talk about another guy who did pretty well yesterday. He did all right. Tony Jones, or I'm sorry, 2 days ago. Tony Jones, who's rostered in 18.7%. He got a little bit of work in there. Got 50 yards, 11 carries.
And I mean, well, I think, the offseason, preseason stuff, training camp stuff with, Tony Jones outperforming Latavius Murray. I think that was real. I don't think that was any kind of hype or coach speak or whatever. I think he is the real deal. And obviously he's working behind Kamara, but if Kamara goes down for even a tiny bit of time, like this dude's a workhorse. Like he is a big, strong back. And I would want to have him on my team sooner rather than later. And, kind of what we talked about before with Sean Payton kind of limiting Winston's throws and kind of keeping it run first and whatever. I think that Jones has a role even if Kamara doesn't go down. Thanks,
Dave. Appreciate you. No, I agree with you 100%. You just heard how much I like Latavius Murray, right? Like I just vouched for Latavius Murray being, a starting caliber back, and yet Tony Jones beat him out. The reason why they wanted Latavius Murray to take a pay cut was because Latavius Murray was going to be the third running back on the team. He wasn't going to be the second running back to take a pay cut. He was going to be the third running back on that team behind Tony Jones. Tony Jones is going to beat out a guy that I said is a starting caliber running back. So, of course, Tony Jones is an absolute smash for me. I think that you can go out there and you can throw 20% on Tony Jones and be completely happy. Go do it. Go get your guy. Go get the backup, especially if you have Alvin Kamara. Go grab your handcuff. I'm even grabbing other people's handcuffs if I think that they have a team that's a competing team and they have Kamara. Dude, I'm grabbing their backup just in case, just to make sure they can't get it and they can't keep competing with me. Is he Alvin Kamara? No, but he does have a lot of talent over there, and this is a system that favors the running back. They want to get the ball to the running back. We've seen it time and time again. So, yeah, move forward. Go grab Tony Jones. I'm okay with putting 20% FAAB on this one. Now, the biggest one. This is my baby. This is the guy that I've been talking about now for 2 years. I've been watching nonstop, and man, Kenny Gainwell. With his snap share, what is he, like 37% snap share, I believe, ended up taking one of his rushes to the house. He's going to see work in the passing game. Sure, this is a little bit of a tough division, but Kenny Gainwell in this system with Jalen Hurts, who's able to freeze linebackers as he goes to scramble out of the pocket and uses the option play, should allow Kenny Gainwell to be wildly, wildly efficient. This guy has the speed. This guy has the vision, right? He has the size. He took 2020 off, right? And he was able to add on like 20 pounds to his weight, or it might have been 15 pounds to his weight to make sure that he was up to size so he wasn't viewed as a satellite back. He's not a satellite back. This dude is going to smash faces. And I like Miles Sanders. I'm on board Miles Sanders. But I think Kenny Gainwell can still give you value as well. And he's not just a handcuff. He actually has independent or standalone value based on the matchups. If I feel like the Eagles are going to be winning like how they smashed the Falcons, we're going to see the same usage that we saw from the Indianapolis Colts with Nick Sirianni coming over. We're going to see them give Miles Sanders a third down off or a first down off so he's not running his head into the ground. We're going to see Kenny Gainwell with plenty of opportunities when they have advantageous matchups, and his efficiency is going to be monstrous. I love Kenny Gainwell. This year, and if he gets the starting opportunity, I will be through the roof excited. I cannot wait to watch this guy in this offense as he takes over. Go get Kenny Gainwell.
Well, I love that you say that, especially since you traded me Chase Edmonds for Miles Sanders, and I picked up Gainwell in a few leagues. I love your take on that, but I'm in a total agreement. I mean, I think obviously we saw Gainwell basically made Boston Scott a non-factor. Boston Scott was nowhere to be seen. Like, can somebody put up a missing poster for him?
You can
like,
see him.
What did he do?
He was on special teams.
Right. But that's what I'm saying. Like, somebody put up a missing poster for him. Like, what did he do? It was crazy. And I was a little unsure on him. And I'll be completely honest about this. When he got drafted, and then I was like, oh, he's from Memphis. Oh, his college workload. Oh, okay. Yes, all in on Gainwell. Like, the more I researched about him, the more I was about him. I love it so much.
He forced Antonio Gibson, The guy that
Yes.
everyone's drafting in the second round this year, or sometimes in the late first, he forced Antonio Gibson to move to a wide receiver position because he was so much better than Antonio Gibson. Now,
Yep.
yes, I know he went to a smaller school and, maybe they didn't have to look at size metrics as much, but he forced Antonio Gibson to move to wide receiver. Kenny Gainwell is an absolute smash waiver wire claim this upcoming year. Now, we are going to move on to the wide receivers. But before I do want to give a huge shout out to Trophy Smack, TrophySmack.com. Kenny Gainwell can get you that trophy. And I'm not talking about, these little tiny trophies that you got when you were a kid. I'm talking about massive trophies that are like 4 feet tall. They got the coolest like toppers on them. Like you can get like bobblehead toppers. You can do all that stuff. And then they got these championship belts, right? I don't know if you've seen them, but they're insane. They weigh like 20 pounds. They're like really
Like
heavy.
wrestling
heavy.
belts.
They're legit title belts. Like I'm not even kidding you. And actually, if you go to TrophySmack.com and you guys want to pick up your trophy for your league, and if you haven't yet, then I don't why you're even playing with that league, because that league would be super, super lame. But no, if you go and you purchase it for your league and you enter in promo code CIRCLE, then you actually get a championship ring for free, which is valued at $60. So go check it out, TrophySmack.com. Get yourself a sick-ass trophy, get yourself a badass belt, and go throw a ring into that cart. When you do, you enter in promo code CIRCLE, and you get that $60 ring for free. I don't even know why y'all are still here listening to me. You guys need to be TrophySmack.com. Go get yourself a trophy. Now, let's move on to wide receivers. And we did have a comment earlier. Let me see if I can go find it. We have a couple of them. So we're going to start out with some of these questions. If you have questions, please leave them in the chat. We'll get to them, as we can. AJ Green, is he a bust? Because, Christian Kirk went out and shut off. Like, we had Rondale Moore, who actually had a good game. And then AJ Green did nothing.
I don't know if he's a bust. He's old. Like everyone's like, last year he was kind of washed, I don't think he really went in. If you're still expecting AJ Green to do something, like, I'm sorry, please pull yourself out of 2016 or whenever it was. Like AJ Green is not the wide receiver one he used to be. I think he's just like a placeholder. And I wasn't disappointed or upset or surprised, frankly, with what he did.
No, he is what he is. And we're not going to see a ton of outside targets because Kyler Murray doesn't throw it outside that often unless he's outside the pocket, in which that case he's looking downfield, because if he's sitting, 10 yards downfield, Kyler's like, oh, I can get that 10 yards myself. I'm not going to pass it and risk an incompletion or an interception. I'm just going to go pick that up myself. So when Kyler Murray gets outside the pocket, he's looking downfield unless Rondale Moore is right there in front of him, maybe even Chase Edmonds to an extent. Oh, man, Rondale Moore is so sexy. Did you watch him?
It's going to be great.
So sexy. No, but AJ Green was just nothing for me. I didn't draft him anywhere. I don't have any shares of AJ Green this upcoming year. We have a question about Jalen Waddle. Thoughts going forward? Is he an every week start at wide receiver? That's an interesting question if he's an every week start. Do you want to take this one, or you want me to start it out?
I don't know if he's an every week starter. I really liked him this week because of Will Fuller being out. And obviously Devontae Parker's dealt with a lot of injuries, and especially the soft tissue injuries, which can kind of linger. I won't go so far as saying he's every week. I think I would have to play him based on matchups. And, Tua, the jury's still out on Tua also. So we don't really know.
I kind of like him as an every week start. I don't love him. I don't love this as an every week start. This is going to be like a flex play for me. Well, I'm looking at the schedule right now. We have Buffalo. We've got the Raiders. We've got the Colts. That's 3 games that I'm automatically starting in there. And then Tampa Bay. It depends on how Will Fuller comes into this matchup or into the fold and takes away targets, because they're going to have to score up against Tampa Bay. It's not going to be a low scoring game, and you can't run on Tampa Bay. Like they're one of the best run defenses we could have seen in the past 10 years. This Tampa Bay front seven is no joke. So they're going to have to pass if they're going to have any dream of keeping up. So Jalen Waddle becomes startable there as like a back-end flex option. Then they have Jacksonville. They've got Atlanta. They got Buffalo again, Houston, Baltimore, which you're going to have to score. And plus, they got beat deep multiple times in this past game. The Jets, Carolina. I'm just looking at a whole slew of matchups where I just like who they're lined up against. I like Jalen Waddle's shot. Once again, it depends on how, they line up targets. But, if they're passing 30 times a game, 35 times a game.
Yeah, the volume's there.
I like Jalen Waddle. I don't know if he's an every week start. Like she said, you're going to have to check a lot of him in the matchups, but I'm liking his outlook, moving forward. I might actually try and go trade for him in a couple redraft leagues, actually. I don't know. That's interesting. All right, so let's see if I have anybody else in the wide receiver questions. It's looking like it's pretty clear. Let's see. Is this a wide receiver question? All right. Yeah, we got a wide receiver. I'm guessing Devontae Adams, right? Let us know if this is Devontae Adams, and we'll revisit. We'll hit a couple of these questions or a couple of these waiver wire decisions, and we'll come back to this one. Tim, let me know if you're talking about Devontae Adams, and if you want to know our take on it. All right, so we have Nelson Aguilera, who is one of my favorite waiver wire pickups of the week. If you don't have him, I drafted him in a lot of spots. So if you don't have him, you need to go get him. He's rostered in 32.3% of ESPN leagues, and he had 72 yards on 5 grabs and a touchdown while playing the tied for the most amount of snaps, or I should say routes run for the wide receiver position with Jakobi Meyers. Yeah, Jakobi Meyers out-targeted him, but I think they have the same amount of receptions. If not, it was close. Meanwhile, we're talking about a rookie quarterback, right, in his first game up against a defense or a secondary that is very, very good secondary when we talk about Byron Jones and Xavier Howard, and yet he still put up very, very good numbers. We're just seeing the tip of the iceberg, I think, for Nelson Aguilera. Are we not?
I think so too. I was pretty high on Jakobi Meyers going into the offseason, listening to the training camp, preseason stuff. But, there's always that narrative that Jakobi Meyers can't score a touchdown, that he's not a red zone target, that he doesn't do this. And, with Jonnu Smith and Hunter Henry also being there and the way that Belichick likes to run the 12 personnel, I think Aguilera might be the dude. And I'm taking my L. I might be taking my L on Jakobi Meyers, and I really don't want to be doing that, but I think that I might have to.
I think Jakobi Meyers could still see the volume. Like you said, he led the team in targets. If they're in a competitive game like they were this past week, I think that they could eventually open up Mac Jones. So I'm not out on Jakobi Meyers. I just like Nelson Aguilera so much more because he has that big playability that you want from your flex position. Like I always have this theory where your top few guys, right? Like, your first few picks, your first 3 to 4 rounds, they should never lose your league. Like I like upside, but I need minimum floor when it comes to these top guys. And obviously you weigh it, based off of upside and floor. When I start getting into my flex guys, that's when I want to take shots on upside. And as a flex position, Nelson Aguilera offers that. And he's a guy that can put up 20 points, 25 points in a game and win you a week. I just don't want my top picks to lose me any weeks. I want my big time or my flyers or the flex positions to win me weeks.
Yeah, I agree with that. If Meyers can't show up in the red zone, then Aguilera's going to get it all. Like, who else do they have? Yeah, I don't really think that they do.
Well, we do have another competition, right? Because that's a big topic right now. It's Jakobi Meyers is Nelson Aguilera, right? Another big topic right now is KJ Hamler versus Tim Patrick. Which one do you want to roster in this situation? Because we have a quarterback in Teddy Bridgewater that likes to see open receivers, and Cortland Sutton, man, getting 2 targets, that was not good. So, is this something as to where one of these other guys could actually be the number 1 wide receiver on their team? Is it still Cortland Sutton? And either way, regardless, are you going after either Tim Patrick or KJ Hamler with Jerry Jeudy's injury happening?
I definitely am. I have an embarrassing large number of Jeudy in all of my leagues. So that really, really, really sucked. Yeah. So I've actually been going over this even before the show. According to Sleeper, Hamler's been getting first team work, but it also seems like Tim Patrick gets more of the red zone targets. And in fantasy, we all know, like, it doesn't matter how much your quarterback loves you. It matters how much you score. I was researching a little bit about it just for my own personal use, but Fantasy Pros expert voting is split 67-33 in favor over Patrick over Hamler. It's honestly, they were both tied in targets. The only thing that set Patrick apart was that he got the touchdown. Otherwise, they were dead even. So I think it's just a gut call. I think I want to watch how practice plays out and how it goes the rest of this week, the next couple of days, to see just who's getting the targets. And I never waffle on a pick, but I cannot pick this one right now.
No, this is a tough one. And this is probably the most highly debated one, for the whole entire industry right now, is like, which one do you go with? Because KJ Hamler offers you that massive upside. He's got the speed, right? He's got that breakaway ability to be able to get downfield, get behind the defenses. The only thing is just Teddy Bridgewater doesn't attempt a lot of those passes. He wants to see his receivers open, and Tim Patrick has been somewhat of a target magnet whenever he has opportunity. He just doesn't get a lot of opportunity. He's a bigger physical receiver, right? He doesn't measure up necessarily, but he plays like this massive guy, like Calvin Johnson status without the ups. But he likes to get into it. And then when it comes to him actually trying to create separation, he's able to do so because most players or most defenders expect him to be more physical and try to outmuscle him and get to the ball. Instead, he just steps right away and they're like, whoa, this just happened. And so he's wide open when he does see opportunities. I'm going to lean with Tim Patrick on this one. I think that Tim Patrick is going to offer that opportunity, although I do like the upside from KJ Hamler. I'm probably going to be very close in my FAAB budget by spending on him. I'm probably going to throw like 2-3% at KJ Hamler, and I'll probably throw close to 5 or 6% at Tim Patrick. All right.
And I think I did put a contingency bid in for both of them. Just, I can't really lose out on either one. So if somebody else bids more than me on one person, then maybe I can get the second person, whatever. I think that they both have a great upside and they'll both do really well. It just depends on who gets the touchdowns.
Well, let's bring in this conversation, right? Tim's back. Hey, Tim, what's up? Thanks for, throwing it back in there. Davante Adams, what's our take? So Davante Adams obviously had a really rough outing this past week. Aaron Rodgers looked terrible, but guess what? That's going to happen when you take off all the summer and you don't spend time getting ready for your job. Like, you have one job to do. You only do that job for like 4 months. And if you're out hanging out for 8 months in a year, you come back, you're going to be a little bit rusty. Like, it's going to happen. With that being said, I didn't expect it to be that bad. Like, I was like, damn, like that was crazy. But Davante Adams, you don't have any fear with this. Aaron Rodgers, first off, their schedule is amazing, and Aaron Rodgers is not going to be that bad every single week. I think people are, portioned by saying, hey, they could end up losing. But keep in mind, it could take a few weeks to get back to where he was. When we look at the Packers, it's not every year they start slow, but there are years where Aaron Rodgers takes off for part of the offseason, and they start out slowly. You guys remember like that whole thing where he was like, relax, right? Like it goes back to this, and it happens from time to time with Aaron Rodgers. I'm not worried about it. He should get back on his feet this upcoming week and be a relevant fantasy option. Jeffrey Okudah is out, so that also offers some advantageous matchups up against the Detroit Lions, who are still a makeshift defense. Obviously, they just allowed the 49ers to put up what was it, 40, 45,
44
points? Yeah, it was something insane.
44-33 or something like that.
Yeah, so just look forward to Aaron Rodgers getting back on his feet this week with Davante Adams melting faces. There's no reason to bench him. I will play Davante Adams for the next 5 weeks if he burns me over the next 4. I'll keep doing it.
And even I think that the Saints are one of the most underrated defenses in the league. I mean, even with Lattimore out, everyone's like, Adams is going to feast, But again, Sean Payton does that next man up mantra. And he's a great coach. I mean, he's been doing this for so long. Aside from Belichick, I think that he is probably one of the best coaches or the best coach in the league. And his defense isn't gonna go down.
Yeah, no, I agree with you 100%. All right, so let's go. There's this question right here from Dustin. Robbie Anderson versus New Orleans. Mooney versus Cincy. We do our start sit questions tomorrow night. I am going to answer this one for you, but if anybody else has seen this, come join us tomorrow night at 9:00. It's going to be Shane, myself, and Jacob, the Canadian Wonder. We will be doing starter sit questions tomorrow night. You guys can go check us out. If you guys missed that one, then we actually do Sunday mornings in the group chat for fantasy football discussion. So make sure y'all check that out. All right, Robbie Anderson up against New Orleans. Mooney versus Cincinnati. Okay, so Mooney didn't play well this past week, or didn't get a lot of opportunities this past week. He was still on the field running the routes. Andy Dalton, what do you expect? Like, you're playing up against the Rams, right? This is going to happen.
I just can't get behind Andy Dalton. Anything that Andy Dalton touches, and this is not me being bitter from last season after Dak went out, I swear, but anything that Andy Dalton touches, I think Nagy is just being an ass, to put it bluntly. Like, start Justin Fields. You traded up for Justin Fields. You didn't think Justin Fields was going to fall to you. Just start Justin Fields. Everybody will be better off. Also, if they're running Allen Robinson on those 10-yard, like, little baby routes, like, what makes anybody think that Mooney's going to get better until Fields comes in? Like, it's not.
Man, Robbie Anderson up against New Orleans, so there's likely to see coverage from Marshawn Lattimore.
Is he going to be back though? Like,
is he?
I mean, he had surgery today.
Oh shit, I missed that. I completely missed that. I was too busy writing my DFS article. I missed it.
Yeah, I don't know if he's going to be back. They say officially he's day to day, but if he could still be out.
See, this is why we don't do our start sit questions today, because I'm not up to date on the injuries and everything happening. I'm not up to date. But no, I go Robbie Anderson if Marshawn Lattimore. So either way, I'm still probably going to go Robbie Anderson. Keep in mind, it is up against Cincy, so they have a great matchup. This is the revenge game for Andy Dalton. And by the way, Britt, just in case you're wondering, it's going to be the Justin Fields show at halftime of week 3. I've been calling that all offseason.
I actually called it beginning of week 4. So we're very close in that.
We're close. Yeah. I just, I think halfway through a game where you could still see Justin Fields, get a little bit of work. Plus, that's week Nick Foles took over for Trubisky last year. So we have Antonio Brown over. Oh, God, it's another starter sit question. Dude, guys, I'm not ready for this. It's Tuesday. Football just finished yesterday. Come join us tomorrow night. We'll do starter sit. I want to make sure that I'm accurate with everything that I'm telling you guys, of course, and girls. So, please join us tomorrow night for the starter sit questions. Is Sterling Shepard? This is a good one. Is Sterling Shepard the best wide receiver to spend your FAAB on? If he's out there, it's a good one. But just keep in mind, Sterling Shepard does have a tough matchup. I know that Keenan Allen still put up like 9 receptions for 100 yards up against Washington, but this is a very, very good defense. And, up against Kendall Fuller, who actually normally plays really well. He allowed 5 receptions, I believe, on 6 targets this past week. I still don't like that for Sterling Shepard. Meanwhile, Benjamin St. Judice for Washington football team, he allowed Mike Williams to just take him to school. He's a 3rd or 4th round rookie. Man, I think Kenny Galladay is going to have a hell of a day. And honestly, I kind of want to let somebody else get Sterling Shepard. I think it's a roster bomb.
And Shepard has so many injuries over the past few years. Like, I think he's yet to play a complete season. I wouldn't spend FAAB on him, but
look at his matchups though. Week 3, week 4, week 5 for Sterling Shepard. That makes it interesting for me. It's a tough matchup, so you can't pick him up and play him. But up against Atlanta, where he's going to see Isaiah Oliver. And then you have, who's the slot corner is it Brian Poole for New Orleans, I believe. Either way, the slot corner over there is not good. And then Dallas' slot corner is Jordan Lewis. The Rams slot corner is not good. I mean, whoa. These matchups are nuts. Like, this is a very, very sexy matchup all the way up until week 8 almost. I kind of like this. Aside from week 2. Sterling Shepard for me is actually now going up. I would put him right there behind Nelson Aguilar. He might be my second favorite one.
But how much FAAB are we going to spend on him? How much FAAB are we spending on him? Because
just have a fill-in for 8 weeks. 15%. 15. Too much?
Yeah. No, I can deal with that.
All right. 15% on Sterling Shepard. All right, so let's go to this last wide receiver real quick. I actually have another show here in 20 minutes for Washington football team, so I kind of gotta expedite this slightly. But let's say Zack Pascal, right? Who you wrote in the notes, actually. You said everybody's freaking out about this, right? Are they all freaking out?
Everyone's like, he blew up, he did this, just based on his points. If you look at why he got that points, he got 2 touchdowns. He was only targeted 5 times. Like, do we really think that he's going to sustain this from week to week to week? And don't get me wrong, I'm going to target him, but I'm not blowing a bunch of FAAB on him.
No, I'm not either. And, he's somebody that hasn't been relevant, but he should have been a a preseason pickup for you because guess what? He had the starting slot role. He's the starting slot receiver over there. So he will have certain
And
weeks where he
Carson
goes
Wentz
off.
has a noodle arm.
Yes, he does. Hey, he throws a pretty deep ball from time to time.
He can, but for the most part, it's just noodles.
I was just really, this hurts me. Like, this pains me because I was so big on Paris Campbell, and Paris Campbell didn't get any slot snaps, and now I'm so destroyed right now. But, I mean, when T.Y. Hilton comes back, that role could obviously change. Up against the Seahawks, who their slot corner, by the way, isn't great. That, throws an advantageous matchup. You can't run on them. So how else were they supposed to deliver touchdowns? Well, you throw to the slot. They don't have a tight. Who is it? Jack Doyle? Come on now. No, I think
Wally Cox. Don't forget about him.
Oh, and Wally Cox, of course, my fault. I apologize. No, so I think that Zack Pascal is just a direct result of game script and what the Seahawks are willing to give up versus Zack Pascal going out and grabbing those fantasy points. So I'm actually a fade on Zack Pascal for now. If I got him for free prior to the season started, I'd be cool with it. But I'm not going to go pay FAAB for him.
Oh, yeah. I'm picking him up without FAAB. If I get him, I get him. But
all right, Robert Stories asks, is Sermon fantasy relevant, or is this hype train real? We talked about it earlier in the show, Robert. I don't mind re-answering for you again. We think that Mitchell has some major big playability, but this is going to be a committee approach. Unless you have any. No,
yeah, I think that, Sermon's going to be fantasy relevant with Mostert being out, but who knows with that backfield. Right now it's Mitchell. So, you basically have to go Mitchell, right?
Yep. A big shout out to Tim, of course, man. Anytime. Was that part of our Wednesday show or was that our Sunday show? I'm very curious. All right. And then big shout out to Britt. So let's go ahead and let's do this last question, and then we're going to cover up the tight ends, and then I got to go to do the Washington football team show. All right. What do you guys think about picking up Arizona's defense right now? I think he meant the defense. That defense looked good, man. Like, they looked really, really good up against Tennessee. And I already talked about how they were going to be a pass funnel type defense, right? Because they added J.J. Watt. They have Chandler Jones. They have some great pieces to be able to stop a running back. And I was fading Derrick Henry this week. I was like, do not play Derrick Henry. This is not the matchup to play Derrick Henry, especially for DFS purposes. Run far, far away. And then I went and touted A.J. Brown, who barely got me enough points to, win a league himself, much less not enough for DFS. But, Chandler Jones getting to the quarterback 5 times, right? They stacked Ryan Tannehill 6 times. And this could be just as big of a result of the Tennessee offensive line, which I didn't take into an account as much as I probably should have. Just as much of a result of the offensive line as it is the defense being good. So, moving forward, was it more on Tennessee, or do you think that the Arizona Cardinals might be a sneaky defensive play for the rest of the season?
I think they're legit. And I was talking about streaming defenses earlier. Arizona is one that I have definitely looked at. And in IDP, obviously Chandler Jones. But, everybody forgets, like, J.J. Watt went to the Cardinals too. Nobody's talking about J.J. Watt being on that line. Like, oh my God. Like, just having that extra presence. Like, yeah, you can't double team Jones anymore to keep him from getting to the quarterback. Like, everyone has to play honest football. And that line is so stacked. Like, you're unmatched when you try to play honest football against that Cardinals defensive line. Also, the Panthers, even with Christian McCaffrey, only put up like 19 against the Jets. Putrid defense. And Robert Saleh was apparently like a defensive guru at San Fran, So I think Arizona is going to slaughter the Panthers. I love that play. I do. Okay. I love it.
Okay. I like it. I don't hate it at all. I think Arizona is good. They do have somewhat of a tough matchup against Minnesota, but their offensive line they're all super, super young. You have Jacksonville, who's susceptible to the blitz. Their offensive line is brutal. The Rams' offensive line is, a shell of themselves. Like San Francisco, yeah, that offensive line is actually pretty good, and so is Cleveland. So maybe for a few weeks, like as a streaming option up against Minnesota, Jacksonville, and possibly the Rams, maybe the Rams. which is a divisional matchup. I actually like that. I think that you can pick them up and stream them for sure, this upcoming week. So let's go ahead and hit tight end. And this is the one that is the big debate for the tight end position. Are you team Adam Troutman or are you team Juwan Johnson?
I'm Juwan Johnson. I drafted Juwan Johnson. I drafted Juwan Johnson in a few leagues. I was all about that trade. Here's why, though. So last season, Adam Troutman rated the highest run blocking grade among all eligible positions at 87.1. Juwan Johnson is a converted wide receiver. Why would you not have Troutman block while Juwan Johnson catches the balls? Also, if you saw Jameis Winston's press conference today, he said that they worked individually throughout the season. And Jameis said, Juwan, if you're out there, I'm giving you the ball. I am all in on Juwan Johnson, especially with the red zones. Like, I know he didn't get the targets that Troutman did, but like, he is a red zone threat and fantasy gold.
So I like your take on that. I don't hate it, but I'm team Adam Troutman. Okay. But I feel like also, like, I'm already big on Adam Troutman. I think that, his agility scores that he did, the way that he plays, he's able to get separation. He's able to make plays after the catch as well. He's an efficient guy with the ball in his hands, and he can get open close to the line of scrimmage. However, Jameis Winston likes to throw it downfield. He does not like to throw close to the line of scrimmage. So we're going to see Juwan Johnson get these downfield targets that Jameis Winston won't see as much of. Meanwhile, let me see real quick. I actually wrote something on this earlier. I think that when it comes to the coverage scheme, so this is going to be week tweak dependent. Troutman's going to succeed up against cover 3 zones because they allow plenty of space in between the linebackers, of course. He pretty much just has to go up against one linebacker versus having to face corners. Meanwhile, with the Buffalo nickel, he's going to get plenty of coverage, from the safeties and one-on-one opportunities for man. So I like Troutman when the primary defensive scheme is either cover 3 or the Buffalo nickel. Up against regular man for Johnson, even up against, normal nickel for Johnson, not Buffalo nickel, where you have another cornerback in instead of a safety. And then cover 2, where you could see Johnson up the seam. I'm going with Juwan Johnson. So I'm mainly going to study the defenses and see what scheme they're playing to decide which tight end I'm going to throw out there. If it's not clear for one way or the other, I'm going to be fading both guys. So for that being said, I am not going to be spending a bunch of FAAB on either one. I don't see a reason to put yourself in that spot with a tight end position where you can stream week to week and you can stream matchups week to week, and you're typically only starting one. So I don't see a reason why you should clog up your roster with a guy that you don't know whether you should play him or not, every single week. And you're going to have to look at the matchups and do all this extra work. It just doesn't make much sense to me. So I'm actually fading both guys, both players, and I'm hoping that I'm not dead wrong on Juwan Johnson, because if he ends up going out and throwing up 2 touchdowns, I'm really going to regret saying that, like every game. Like, yeah, I'm going to regret saying that.
I'm going to hold it over your head too.
You better. I wouldn't expect anything less. I would not expect anything less. All right. I was going to go through this real quick, guys. I was going to run through this and say, don't freak out. Right. And I actually had listed every Green Bay player. I can't spend much time on it because I have to go to another show, but AJ Dillon is somebody who you drafted in the middle rounds. He's a drop candidate. Don't freak out about him. He had a 4.8 yards per carry. He's still got a target with the catch. He ran 7 routes and played a total of 15 snaps. So I'm not freaking out about AJ Dillon only carrying the ball, 4 times. He was game scripted out, essentially. Cortland Sutton is another guy. Yeah, he's come back from injury. I mean, you wrote this one on here, I think. I don't even know what stuff you wrote and I wrote, to be honest, because we have such like a similar style. He's getting back.
How we knew it was going to work.
Yeah. Oh, it works out great. He's getting back on his feet. He's developing his routes. He's getting strength back, and he's learning how to trust his his legs again. It's going to take time for Cortland Sutton to get there, but you drafted him in the 7th round, the 8th round for a lot of these drafts. So you still end up having an opportunity. That's my dog. I'm going to let you keep going.
Yeah. So, it's clear that Cortland Sutton is still rehabbing from the ACL injury. at the ADP, you might not have to start him over the next few weeks, but with Judy being out, I mean, he's obviously going to work his way back in. The next person is Robert Tonyan. Everyone's freaking out because he was shut out in the season opener. Like, what happened with Green Bay? But a lot of people forget he was shut out in last season's season opener, and then he scored 11 touchdowns over the next 15 games. So, I mean, he's going to be fine.
Mike Evans. We actually have this in the chat right now. Mike Evans, 7 1,000-yard receiving yards seasons in a row. I butchered that. Yeah, so it's kind of funny because Britt and I were talking about this prior to the show. And with Jordan Lewis in the slot, with Anthony Brown on the outside, Trayvon Diggs, who actually covers bigger, more physical and fast receivers at 6'2" with his speed, he actually does very well up against those. He struggles up against elusive type backs. Last year in 2020, he went up against Chase Claypool, who's a big, physical, fast receiver, right? And he let Chase Claypool get, what did I say, like it was 2 catches?
3 for 5.
Yeah. 3 for 5 for 32 yards, I think. And then up against Hopkins, he did allow Hopkins to have a big play, but he held Hopkins to only 2 catches on 5 targets. It was for 73 yards because, like I said, he allowed a 60-yard reception. But Trayvon Diggs is actually very, very good up against guys that, have the size and the speed, but maybe not the quickness. Mike Evans should be plenty safe moving forward. I think you typed this in here. He's got Atlanta next week. He'll find the end zone.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
All right. And then, Kyle Pitts is up here. Kyle Pitts saw 7 targets had 4 receptions. Not too great. Meanwhile, Hayden Hurst had 4 catches on 4 receptions. So, they're targeting the tight ends. But the biggest thing was, like, the Falcons could not sustain drives up against the Eagles. And the Eagles knew that they were going to use Calvin Ridley. So they double covered Calvin Ridley the whole game with Darius Slay, which I did not expect. I expected Darius Slay to be one-on-one more often. They actually did double him pretty often with his safety out back. And then they put a linebacker and a safety on Kyle Pitts. And they said, hey, you're going to have to beat us a different way because our front 4 is going to put pressure on you regardless. And they did, especially towards the end of the game, where we would have seen Kyle Pitts rack up some of that extra yardage, possibly, a couple touchdowns. That didn't happen. I'm not freaking out, though. I think that Kyle Pitts, it's his first game as a tight end in the league. I know he played receiver a little bit over there, but I'm not freaking out. Are you freaking out?
Maybe, at first, but then when the logical part of me came back in, then no, I'm fine. Kyle Pitts has a very big, he's obviously like basically the wide receiver number 2 in this offense. Gage is not it.
He's not. He can't get separation.
He can't at all. And Pitts is gonna have his weeks. It's just remember Justin Jefferson last season. After week 4, everyone was like, "What's happening with Justin Jefferson?" And then he blew off and became the rookie of the year. So, yeah, I'm not too worried.
No, he did run the routes. He saw the targets. We saw everything we wanted to see. It just didn't convert over. Good process. Rough week. Hey. Thank you for coming on, Britt, and helping me out with this. Real quick, we're going over to another show. If y'all want to come check us out and listen to the Washington Football Team, go to youtube.com/fantasyintervention. Once again, that's youtube.com/fantasyintervention. And go follow us over there. Give us a little subscribe. And then go check out our Washington Football Team show. We'll be over there in about 5 or so minutes. But before we leave, Britt, where can we find you? What you got going on?
So I write for fightingchancefantasy.com. And I'm on Twitter at Britt_Flinn with an I, not a Y, because it's phonetic. It's weird.
I'll take that. Now you guys can go check out all of our content over there. Like I said, at youtube.com/fantasyintervention. If you guys want to go follow our written content, I believe we have now 3 or 4 weekly articles scheduled to come out. You guys can go find those at fantasyintervention.com. You guys can go find a lot of my written work at playerprofiler.com, and you guys can follow me on Twitter at ff_intervention. Go follow Fantasy Intervention on Twitter as well at join our circle_. And big shout out to Fantasy Football Discussion. You guys are awesome in the group. Make sure you guys go play on Thrive. ThriveFantasy.com. You get prop bets. And if you go sign up now and you enter in promo code Marcus, then they will match your deposit. Yes, that's right. They will match your deposit up to $100. Go check out ThriveFantasy.com. Thank you guys for listening. Thank you, Britt, for coming on. And thank you all for letting us intervene with your fantasy football life. We're out.